This is the trusty little Pixel smartphone that I still use daily 2 years after I got it. It's one of my most used smartphones ever to date, and it's one that I've taken with me on trips. I moved house with it. It's been fantastic, and even though I've moved on from it as my main device, I still use it every single day, and I refuse to put it back in the box and swap it out for a newer model. It's a smartphone with quality, with intrigue, with interesting quirks, and has given me hundreds of hours of usage, despite being one of the cheapest devices that I've ever really used. So I think today it deserves its flowers. Hey guys, I'm Ryan Thomas and this is my little Google Pixel 7a, and it's not a phone that you'll see people screaming about online, not only because it is already 2 years old, but it was also never meant to be that standout flagship option. Instead, a cut down mid-range offering. No frills, everything you need, nothing you don't, and honestly, I really like that sort of thing. I can get on board with this, and I have done. The second I got it, I actually put my main SIM card in it, and I started using it as my main smartphone. It's actually part of that Pixel 7a and Steam Deck package combination that I've mentioned a couple of times on this channel last year. And it's the combination that costs less than a full fat Pixel 7 Pro at the time, but it gave you so much bang for your buck. This phone plus the Steam Deck is a brilliant combination. Interestingly, I had moved from a flagship to this, which had more RAM and more processing power. This thing not only has the Tensor G2, which is not necessarily a loved SoC, but it's actually a less refined version of the same G2 that you'd find in something like the Pixel 7 or the Pixel 7 Pro. But that honestly didn't get in the way for me. Like, I loaded this phone up with all of my apps, all of my work apps, my banking apps, my social apps, everything. And to be totally honest, the only game I really play outside of the review period is Golf Battle, which doesn't take much to run at all and runs on this absolutely fine. And you know what? It held up remarkably well. You have to temper your expectations a bit. Like, this thing still does stutter sometimes and occasionally it lags out. But given how much I've absolutely battered this phone since I got it, I'm not really surprised by that fact, that it doesn't run 100% smoothly. By the way guys, we're really trying to hit 500,000 subscribers, so if you wouldn't mind hitting that button, it would mean a lot to us. Thank you very much. The screen in particular has to be a standout. Like, it gets brighter than I expected when I first got it, and even now it's pretty decent of a panel. Like, maybe its biggest problem is that Pixels these days are known for having some of the best, if not the best displays on smartphones, particularly getting very bright outdoors, and that's something that this thing just cannot catch up with. It's not bad though, and still by today's standards, I think it's a pretty reasonable screen. And it's certainly not the weak point of the Pixel 7a. One thing that has really annoyed me since I got this out of the box is the optical in-display fingerprint scanner. It is quite simply bad, and it's something that has plagued a lot of early Tensor Pixels as well. It's not limited to the 7a. I feel like they started to get better with the 8 series, and by the time we got around to the 9 Pro, they started using the proper ultrasonic scanners inside their phones. The Pixel 9 base model still uses an optical unit, which isn't very good, but the Pros having the ultrasonic are just so much better than this thing. And honestly, the 7a's fingerprint scanner has really frustrated me at times. And boy, does this phone get hot. I mean, seriously, this is one of the hottest phones I've ever used, and not in the good way, by the way. It's reported that the weaker G2 in this thing is less efficient, and in particular, it runs at higher temperatures. And that explains why this thing feels like a furnace, basically, when you push it, and the battery also depletes faster as well under these circumstances. And I mean hotter and drains battery faster than the equivalent Pixel 7 and 7 Pro. Whilst I ran this as my daily, I would always charge my phone overnight. I never ran into that thing where I would just top it up in the morning for 20 minutes like I do with my OnePlus and get 100% battery. This was maybe a weak point of the 7a, but one that I didn't personally feel like I ran into because I would just charge the phone overnight over a cable right next to my bed. And actually, since moving on from this, I've noticed the standby time is pretty bad. Like, I've removed pretty much all of the apps from it other than the ones that I use daily. And I've disabled a lot of stuff as well. And yeah, even then, standby time, it struggles to get through a day or two, which is very strange. Granted, I haven't factory reset this yet, so maybe that would fix it. It's also a really nice size, and if you've watched any of my videos, then you're probably quite aware that I don't love huge phones, and in particular, I dislike huge phones that have flat sides. But this thing being rounder and smaller together has been a great combination, and not only allowed me to forget that it's in my pocket at times, but it's just way easier to use one-handed as well. I've dropped it way more times than I care to admit, and honestly it's held up remarkably well. And maybe the plastic back really does play a part in this, because I don't understand how people are able to smash their phones so easily. I have never run a case on this, I've dropped it in all kinds of places, and it's held up very well. Before I talk about what I use this phone for daily right now, I want to talk about the Pixel cameras, because if there was ever a need to justify buying a Pixel A series over other mid-range competition, this is it. This phone single-handedly proved to me that Pixels do it best from a reliability standpoint. During my stint with the 7A, I took a lot of photos, and honestly, I'm so glad that I did. Even though this was flawed hardware, clearly, it still captured memories that I will look back on and cherish forever, and it did it reliably without giving me a blurry image pretty much ever. The Pixel look is the Pixel look, so what that means is that there's a lot of dynamic range, but enough contrast to really keep character in the images. They don't look washed out. The colours are also quite pleasing and neutral. There's plenty of sharpness despite the mid-range sensors, and I just can't get over that reliability. It was fantastic. Granted, the Pixel look is more neutral, inoffensive. It tries to keep things colourful, but not stylized, if you get what I'm saying. It doesn't do the Leica, the Hasselblad, the Zeiss colour tuning that sometimes makes your images look filmic or a little bit more dreamy. Instead, it likes to represent what was actually there in person and what your eyes actually saw. And you know what? I can respect it for that, because it does a phenomenal job. I'll be honest, now looking back after having used much more expensive smartphones, I'm not sure I could return to a phone without a good quality 3x telephoto, sort of like the ones we have on OnePlus phones, or even a 5x from the likes of the Pixel 9 Pro. But at the time, I was oblivious, and I'll be honest, I never felt like I needed more, and that's probably the best way to do things. These days, I use my Pixel 7a as part of my work suite, primarily as my teleprompter for filming these videos. And you're probably thinking, how does that work? I'm using my OnePlus 12 as a teleprompter temporarily whilst I make this video. But the 7a is reliable, it's just the right size for my teleprompter, and the screen is dialed in. Being an OLED, there's minimal glare, but I get to see all the text that I would need to, and I can't even begin to imagine how many battery cycles this thing has now been through, because I use it every single day. But yeah, for recording videos, it's been brilliant. But hopefully it will continue to be, as I plan on carrying this thing through to 2026 at a minimum. And I mean, this phone still gets another, 3 years of software updates, so why not? And even by that point, I'm not sure my teleprompter needs to have the latest version of Android, so it might even go on beyond that. My Pixel 7a has been brilliant, and I'm so glad that I've held on to it for as long as I have, because it continues to be an excellent companion. It's not the phone I recommend to everyone in 2025. It's not even probably a perfect teleprompter. See the standby issues that I mentioned earlier. But it's one that I feel I've become attached to, and because of that, it's really hard for me to put it down and pick up something else. Perhaps that's silly, but it is the truth. Guys, thank you so much for listening to my little rant on my trusty little Pixel 7a. Let me know in the comments if you've shared the same frustrations that I've had with the Pixel 7a, and if you've upgraded from the 7a, I don't blame you. But let me know what you've upgraded to, because I would love to hear that. I went straight from the 7a to the OnePlus 12, and I've been really happy with my decision, to be honest. Anyway, whilst you're down there, be sure to hit like if you enjoyed today's content, and of course subscribe to never miss another upload. Thank you all so much for watching. I've been Ryan Thomas, and I will catch you later. Cheers.